Director for Ottertail County. And as you may have seen pop up, we are recording this session today. We do share it out with those who aren't, with everyone who's invited to this convening and maybe wants to review or wasn't able to join our event today. So again, just as a welcome and review of what we do around housing in Ottertail County. So we host convenings either in person or more often virtually on an approximate quarterly basis throughout the year. And so today I'll do just a quick recap of our Big Build Action Strategy, what we're working on, how we inform our work, how we where we're doing work. And then we have a focus on rehab today. Rehab is a big part of that housing strategy of the counties, and then highlight a party. Everyone likes a good party, and give some information on that, and certainly leave time for Q&A and discussion at the end. Feel free to use the chat, while we have our guest speaker today that I'll introduce here in just a minute. But again, just to review our strategy for the Big Build, this is kind of stayed the same. We've kind of changed how we've done work, but our action areas continue to be supporting the increase of construction, looking at the various needs of household types, income levels, et cetera, throughout the county. Always working to build partnerships, looking for partnerships to help expand capacity, because none of us can do this alone to address the housing needs we have. We're always looking for funding sources, funding opportunities to help with reinvestment, as well as the new housing and other opportunities. And finally, making sure our voice is heard by our federal and state officials on where funding can be most impactful in our communities, specifically in Ottertail County. So we continue to do that work. But as mentioned, today we're going to focus on rehab and have a guest with us today, Ben Winchester, who needs no introduction really. So I'll turn it over to Ben to get started on his talk today. Thanks for joining us, Ben.
Yeah, my pleasure, really. Hey, everybody, good to see you. My name is Ben Winchester. I'm a rural sociologist with Extension. I have been doing housing applied research for a number of years now, and see housing as the crux. Without a house, there's nowhere for labor, leadership, nowhere for community to happen. So I'm going to walk through kind of where I've been a little bit. I've got about 20 minutes here, so I'm going to get this share going. There we go. You see that all right? I don't know if you can see my face on there, but I think I'm going to walk through a little bit more about, I think I started with this initial housing. We typically have a laissez-faire approach to housing. That is, just let people do what they're going to do in the house. But then long term, what happens if people don't take care of their house? I was like, man, there's a public cost to private inaction, to people unable or unwilling, most likely unable, to take care of their home, right? Your aging population, this is a big part. We have an aging population. 3/4 of our homes are owned by people over the age of 70 or that are baby boomers and older. And when you're on a fixed income, and every year, if your home is in some sort of substandard state, you're heating the outdoors more and more than you're feeding your body, much less taking care of your home. So what happens in this sequence of inaction, when over time we have people that are unable to take care of their homes? And why is that? It's because homes are a private asset. Amy, I'm not going to tell your mom what to do with her house. It looks kind of bad, like it's about to be torn down, but you know what? I'm not going to say anything, because it's where she lives. At the same time, if that house ends up being torn down, there's a cost. There's a community cost now that we bear. And so this is kind of where I had started, was what's the economic impact of just losing a house in town, right? This was the first not fancy chart I made. Imagine your community has 4 houses in it. And then one year, a house had to be torn down. So in the previous year, when you had all 4 homes, every house brought in $1,000 in property tax revenue. But now, if you had to tear down that structure, now you're only assessed on the land because there's no structure on it. So what's the assessment do? It goes down from, 1,000 is being real conservative here, $1,000 one year to $200 this year. There's an $800 reduction now on this parcel. So do the county commissioners at this point be like, man, we got to reduce our levy? We just tore down that house. We got to reduce our levy by 8? No. The county's going to keep that levy at the same point. Who's going to make up for that difference? I am. as a neighbor to that house. My taxes now in our 4-house town, now 3-house town, just went up by, 30%. So my taxes now are $1,266. So this becomes like, all right, now this private person has an impact on my life. And overall, there's a public pressure being put on these transitions in our rural communities. So really, that's my kind of main point is all housing should be of community concern, but really nobody's truly responsible for it. Like you guys have taken on the responsibility in Ottertail County, but ideally there is no single government agency, nonprofit that's like, we're responsible to make sure all these homes are in good shape as we go from one generation to the next. Nobody does that. Like your Section 8 homes, there's a huge shining light on those homes. But I'm talking about like the rest of the homes in town. What about everybody? What about all the homes? So I convened a study group in January 2024, about over a year ago now, and I wanted to better understand what's the return on investment of like improving homes over of just having a house, that's not substandard. What's the impact of investing money and a house moves from substandard status to standard, right? Not substandard status, right? So what happens if you were to make an investment? We know that when people living in those homes move from substandard to standard, their rates of hypertension go down, their rates of arthritis go down, your rates of all of these medical afflictions go down. So now if you're to invest dollars, you're going to see a public health reduction. You can invest $20,000 and you end up with a $45,000 reduction in public health costs. But again, it might not be visible to me because this is the public health costs. And we want to reduce them, but it's not an everyday appearance in my life and my paycheck and things like that. So we tend not to see it. But this is the type of argument to be made about what type of return do you get when you move people out of that. We're reducing the public burden of public health. At the same time, when you move kids from being raised in a substandard home to being in a standard home, you increase their academic achievement, you increase their educational attainment. So ideally, at the time I started the study group, all these studies were in very, very specific areas. I was like, nah, just what's the economic impact? What's the return on investment of just a house? Like just a house. I wonder if I'm here yet. Oh yeah, and you guys are doing this. So I'm going to use you as the example because you are the shining light in the state for me. You've got the big build. You're meeting this need. So there is a model out there called economic impact studies, and they're typically used to look at events or certain things like the economic impact of target field, right? You're looking at how much of an impact did you have to construct the thing. And of course, they're like 70,000 jobs, or I don't even know what it was, but it's a lot during construction. It's always a lot, but I'm concerned more about the long-term habitation of these things or these events. And so I wanted to replicate the economic impact of the target field to be the economic impact of a house in a small town. And so what you look at is direct, indirect, and induced. And you've got them described here. There's like when I live in a house, I have a job and I spend money across the community. And my money then gets demanded in the businesses to buy their products. And then there's business to business outputs. And then those businesses have to hire people to meet that demand for those additional products. And there's these induced effects. I'm interested mostly not in the direct of who's in the house and the different occupation that the people have or the industry they're in. I'm interested in just the induced effect, which is what is the benefit, economic generating benefit of just having that house in town year to year demanding basic services. And so this is in economic impact modeling, just using what's called the induced effect. So Aidan Opatz and Bridget Tuck, who's our lead analyst, have been doing economic impact analysis for years on all sorts of different topics, economic areas. So now when we brought this together, I wanted to look at just the house, and we did this. And we found out that, all right, for apartments, you build an apartment that's going to cost $200,000. It's going to immediately produce $298,000 in impact when you build it that year, right? You hire people to do the plumbing, the electrical, all of that stuff, right? You produce output. But at the same time, now, if you had somebody in that apartment making $60,000 a year, they're going to produce $41,000 in economic output at a minimum every year. Just having that household in town produces this annually. So like I'm somewhat interested in the construction impact, but I'm really not. I'm interested more like this house is now going to live here for 100 years, maybe hopefully more, right? So every year your habitation impact per unit is 41,000. For twin homes or patio homes, things like that, they cost $300,000 to construct. You produce, again, a $446,000 in output that immediate year. Push that aside. Now, annually, your household income in twin homes at $100,000, and we can change all these income levels too. These are like a minimum for apartments, and we can go even lower if we need to in some cases. But in twin homes, if you had an average household income of $100,000, you're producing a minimum of $70,000 in economic output to support that house and it being habitated. That's not even me and the type of job I have that may have additional impacts in that community. Or if I'm on Medicare or Medicaid, this is also producing all these other impacts in your clinics and pharmacies and hospitals. Every population has massive impacts. This is the base level impact. If you're in a single family home, these numbers, of course, you'd be like, there's no way you're building a home for $350,000. Well, we're just going to run with these numbers for a little bit. So you got a $350,000 bill that immediately produces $520,000 in economic output in that first year it's constructed. But then every year now, because the income controlled a bit, like you're in a single family home, you're going to be higher income. You're not going to be making $60,000 in a single family home new build necessarily, unless you've got some other programs. But sometimes there are. But meanwhile, every year then of $150,000 income, you're producing $95,000 in economic output. So really, when I think about like what is the impact of a home over a lifetime, like a home costing $375,000 and if we just had the household income of 60,000, that's a minimum of 41,000 times those 75 years. Like you're producing $3.1 million in economic activity from every housing unit you have. So maybe investing in housing might not be a bad idea because it's a launching point for everything. And we used to look a little bit more at again, the cost of inaction. But I want to bring up now, we can characterize like what's the impact economically of not having a house on the market, of not having a house available for local labor because it sits in my mom's estate for 3 years as we battle over who's going to get it. This is the reality of parcel transitions that I have a study group going on this summer around what's going on with some of these parcels. Do they go to estates or family members? Are they held on to? Do they go to second homeowners? What does this really look like? So now you can get at the point like, what if a home is torn down and nothing ever gets built on it? Now there is a cost of minimum $41,000 a year in lost economic activity in my community because I have nowhere for labor to live. And this becomes part of the broader question is how, people don't live in an economy, they live in a community and they need to actually live somewhere to participate in that broader economy. So we do know that this older population has been inhibiting and staying in their homes has inhibited the ability for people to move over, but you've been doing a lot of work in that area. And we used to talk about like the opportunity for people to move over. And when you have an older population that is unable to move over, they're going to move out. And then when they move out, they're going to take their transfer receipts with them. And transfer receipts are old age Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Otter County, 27% of all your income comes in the form of a transfer receipt. Medicare, Medicaid, old age Social Security. So right now, one of the sweet spots is the move over housing, these types of patio homes. Because if you've got older people that right now are in workforce homes, and what kind of condition are those homes going to be in when they finally turn over? That's the big question, right? We don't know until they finally turn over what kind of work needs to be done. So from an economic point of view, we want to try to capture these transfer receipts and retain them. We don't want these folks to leave the community because they can't find a place to move over to. So providing move over housing is a wheelhouse for me too. So now the discussion for me changes. It's no longer about the public cost of private inaction. You guys are producing private benefits from this public good by using a public mechanisms. Because a home, in my opinion, is a public good. I'll say the other piece here, and then I'll stop. I love rehab. Like new build, all housing development is affordable housing development. All homes were new at some point, like in legit, all homes being built produces affordable housing of all types. So, but I will say this existing stock with our older population, we have a massive opportunity here to ensure that these stocks are going to move on to the next generation in a reasonable way right now and in a reasonable state. Because right now you may have many homes that are occupied by people that are low income and they're eligible for home weatherization programs, but they don't do it. And then when they go to sell, then they find out they need to do all this work. And who bears the burden of the cost of updating the home? The next people moving in that may not be income eligible. So part of looking at homes, I want to look at our existing conditions, and it's got to be more than just a drive-by look at the roof and look at the siding. I'm going to encourage you all to do free pre-sale inspections for anybody over the age of 55. So people are not surprised when they go to sell and they're like, I didn't know we couldn't have knob and tube anymore, kind of thing. At the same time, I'm a big believer that anybody can be a home rehabilitator. Like I lived in Hancock and my home was built in 1907. There was lath and plaster and knob and tube and like, required a lot of work. And I did it. I didn't always know what I was doing. And I believe there's an opportunity here for us to build community capacity around how to improve our homes at the community level. Start by getting our high school kids involved in knowledge about this, building a network around like the SCORE type group for retired executives. How about some retired, electricians and plumbers or everyday people that aren't even in there? And I say everyday people because anybody can improve their home. Like I'm not going to touch the electrical box, but I can put in outlets. I can change my outlets to tamper resistant. But I also believe people don't know when they don't know how to do things, and you're afraid to take care of your house to some extent. So, as an example, I run a subreddit on Reddit called Home Improvement, and I brought that from 500 people to 4.5 million people. And that's because any question can be asked. Where's my water shut off? Like you have basic questions about how to manage and improve our homes that people may be afraid to ask. And my dad passed away when I was quite young, so I really didn't have an opportunity to like ask dad. Like, do you have an opportunity for people to share and learn about the improvement of their homes in your community? So I'm a huge fan of Habitat for Humanity. And you can go to Habitat and learn how to put up sheetrock and do walls, electrical, and you can learn how to do all those things, but those are on brand new buildings. And I'll tell you, a majority of the homes I'm looking at are like dated, and there's no 90-degree doorways. All the floors like mislevel, or like somebody cut the master joist, and like we got to sister that up. So like, what do you do? And so I would like to encourage a habitat for rehabilitation, like developing a true system in your community to help young people learn that there's opportunities in these trades, much less just have a good skill for your life, have the incoming generation learn about these life skills. I mean, it's not just painting. These are basic things, and you don't need to go to the experts because we are severely short of electricians, plumbers. I mean, this is why you're doing this work. Um, so at the same time, community toolbox and rentals. Like, do you have an opportunity to rent out a saw or just, through the library type thing? So these are the ideas I have around rehab, but it's using that economic data to hopefully turn people's heads to think like maybe there's a private benefit that people have, as we currently do in our public financing. We finance, industrial parks, but we wouldn't think that a house is something we would invest in. A house is an economic production unit just as much as a business is in this view. So with that, this is a real abbreviated kind of version of what I got, but I really appreciate the opportunity to share kind of everything we're learning here in Extension. This is all brand new. We hope to have that report out by the fall. So you guys will be highlighted in that report. So again, kudos to you all for taking the lead and caring about your community and taking some action here. So thanks for allowing me to share. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Well, thanks, Ben. I think we could take some questions right now if there are, or comments from anyone on the call today. I think we're a small enough group. You could either raise your hand or just go ahead and directly unmute if you had a question or comment for Ben on what he just shared. Okay. Well, I'm sure folks are.
I wonder how we can get more information out to the aging community that could be helpful. What aren't we doing? How can we do better?
I think right now there's almost no planning that goes into housing continuity. And I tell the like tongue-in-cheek anecdote that, we don't even have these conversations in your family. And when it's like, hey, mom, it looks like you're not really getting up and down the steps very well. And she's like, shut up, I'm getting around just fine. And then she goes to the doctor in the afternoon and is like, oh my God, my hip. Like, let's have these conversations about what's really going to happen, because there is a best intentions. That is, I'm going to live in my house forever. It doesn't work out like that. Like, and if you were to practice this exercise, imagine you were living in your home and you were unable to live in it anymore, and you had to find some move over single floor living in your house like within a week. Where would you end up? What choices do you have? What do you have control over? I think people do not understand the extent to which this system is so stopped up. It takes 12 to 18 months to find a decent place to move over to. You didn't know there was a list. Like, but again, it's the continuity. It's reminding the folks that are looking to move out that it's okay. You've got a whole generation of people waiting to move in and love your place too. And so now it becomes, do you want to age in your house or do you want to age in your community? Because it comes down to, you're not going to be aging in your community when it comes down to it, because you're in emergency mode and now you're in Clontarf. Not that there's anything wrong with Clontarf, but like, where are you going to end up with your policy of best intentions? So I'm all about working with like Area Agency on Aging and this. How do you have a conversation about the intentions you have in your home? And so I'm working in northwestern Minnesota. We're in September and October, we're doing focus groups of people over the age of 55. And so what we're doing is we're doing focus groups with people that have moved recently by choice. How long did it take? What resources did they use? How was their family involved? What happened to their house? Then we're doing interviews with people who moved recently, not by choice. Like they had to move in 4 days. Like, how did that go? And I'll tell you, it's not good, like typically never good. So it is all about that, trying to lift up, like I'm usually a positive person, but here I want to lift up the stories of disaster to incentivize, like, it's not great at the end when you don't plan. That I'll just stop there. It's just talking to people about their plans, ensuring there's continuity for their lives and their homes and their friends and their lot. Anyway,
Yeah,
nobody pays for that.
I asked because I am currently engaged in a conversation with an older couple who is in this very same boat. They've been in their home for 50 years. They've not been able to, been able to maintain it, and they were forced to sell it. They found buyers who allowed them to stay there at a price point, renting back where they could afford it. But then what about those who are not that fortunate? Because on a fixed income as seniors, we just don't have many solutions to offer. My heart breaks.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we just don't have solutions available, none that I know of.
Well, here I could make the argument. I could coming in and saying like, hey, you have an individual who can't afford that property by $100,000. Like, we could use public money on that because we get that from private returns in 3 to 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we concerned about the overall production of our economy or not? Because that is the launching point for economy, is a house and people in it. People in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Jamie. Those are things we talk about too. Is it takes a lot. It's to get that conversation going, and then what is that transition look like? And that's something we're not going to talk about it today, but something that we do have as one of our priority housing areas is affordable senior housing, and and we are putting public dollars in, right? I mean, that's it wouldn't work otherwise, and so that is a piece, but it's small, and how do we continue to do that work and think about that? So yeah, thanks. Donald, did I see you unmute, I think, as well? Did you have a comment or question?
No, I'm sorry. Sorry about
okay. No, no worries. All right. Any other questions or comments?
that. Well, Amy, now that you call them,
Now that I called you out, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment too. I mean, the slides are going to be great to look at, and I appreciate everything that you guys are doing as far as seeking out the information. Mr. Winchester, you're an amazing storyteller, and it's going to be great to have the slides, but the commentary and everything that goes with it. How you present is pretty amazing. So I look forward to hearing and seeing more coming from you guys. I appreciate you guys. You're a valuable resource.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, good. Well, if folks come up with other questions or thoughts at the end, we will have time and space for that as well, or feel free to drop them in the chat. And speaking of, if you want to hear more on this, and so very timely slide, U of M Extension is hosting a webinar and next Tuesday. So Ben and I will both, I'll be following the kind of a longer discussion on this. So there'll be another opportunity right away next week to hear a little bit more about this research and the work there. So again, we'll send out the slide deck, but you can find it on Extension's website to get registered for that. So next Tuesday. All right. So when we think about rehabilitation, that is something we do invest in. We have resources for that, and 3 particular programs that I'll just really briefly walk through today. We did list on the slide some other funding sources or opportunities. The Small Cities Development Program through DEED is focused on rehab, and particularly those in a lower income bracket. We work with our communities in the county to help access those dollars, and we are currently working in Pelican Rapids and are planning another application for another community coming up here in the next year or so. And then 2 other agencies that offer different loans and grants and different types of programs. USDA has the 504 single family program for repair. And also Minnesota Housing has a range of programs for different pieces, including a range of programs. So again, those links will be in the slide deck as they get sent out. But today wanted to talk about 3 programs that we locally administer. Our rental rehab for rental housing stock, owner occupied, and then also emergency repair. So starting with the rental rehab loan program, this is for any rental unit, single family or multi-unit rental. And you can see the loan limits there. This is a loan that's repaid. It's a 2% interest rate, repaid on a monthly basis over a 10-year period. So particularly in the current interest rate environment we're in, this is an option, an opportunity. There's some caps for larger multifamily buildings that you can see there. There isn't an income limit for occupants if you access this program, but there are rent limits within the building. So those are listed there so they'd have to be reported on for the duration of the loan, and then the owner does need to contribute into that project. So if you're interested, again, there's a link here, but you can find the information on our website with a more detailed program description. And then our second program is for owner occupied. This one is deferred, does have an income by household. The loan is repaid when that home sells or is refinanced or has some other conveyance related to the property, but it is deferred during that time period. This is not for a new owner in the home. That is something that comes up. You do have to be in the home for at least 2 years prior to applying for it. That's something we talk about. We have limited resources, but this is intended, to be owner occupied and not to facilitate someone maybe looking to improve and then sell that home more as a business opportunity. So we kind of capture some of that time in the residence there. So it does have an income limit. We tie that, this income standard for owner occupied, we use across a number of our programs. This is related to state defined incomes for various programs, including tax increment financing use for other types of programs. So we try to keep it as consistent across the board for our owner occupied programs. And then our third program is our emergency repair. So this is where we hope we don't get to, because this is now addressing, those failing systems, really significant issues within a property. So trying to really keep it habitable versus making those proactive repairs. And we, of course, want to encourage the proactive investment before you get to this point. This one does have a lower income tier because it is forgiven over a 10-year period. So if they stay in the home, they're able to have that forgiven over the 10-year period at 10% each year. This one does have a lifetime benefit. So if someone may live in more than one residence, they are only able to access it once for that. But it is $20,000 to support those really emergency repair type items. I know other members of our team are on today. One thing I guess to note as they think about what I missed or what I misstated on these programs, but the prior two programs are available countywide. This last program is limited to areas excluding Fergus Falls and Perham. At this time, the funding stream does not allow for full countywide coverage, but the other programs are available countywide. Yeah, I don't, Tanya or others, anything to add on those programs that we have available?
I think just kind of thinking out of the box a little bit. If you out in the world encounter somebody that needs help with their home, it is always good if they just give us a call. Sometimes communities that have had a previous small cities grant may have access to some of the repayments that could be used for those repairs, and then that could be paired with some of our financing to hopefully get a more robust rehab. But we always encourage phone calls so that we can make some connections and see if we can kind of tie funding sources together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one that we don't directly administer at the county here as well is our septic replacement program. We have a lot of housing that are served with private septic systems, and we coordinate closely with our Land and Resource Department on replacement when it does have an order for replacement. So we have a variety. We've been able to access more funding through a state pool for that program that we locally administer as well. So particular to septic programs. So just know that, right? So if you hear of people in your networks that might be able to utilize or leverage any of these programs, give us a call. We have resources available. We expect to have those going forward as well as we look forward to our next coming budget years. So hopefully we'll be in good shape to continue to be able to provide this investment. And if there's we're also open, to talking about where is there unmet need. That's something that we often talk about is where is that unmet need and how can we help fill that either within the parameters of our funding as we're guided for its use, but also within the realm of the available funding we have. We don't have unlimited resources, but we do want to make sure our resources are being deployed and that they're in a way that's effective in filling a gap that isn't being met elsewhere. All right, any questions on those programs that we have? Again, rental, rehabilitation, owner occupied, and then that emergency repair that's up on the screen right now. Yeah. All right. Okay, well, we'll keep going with a few more items today. So I mentioned a party early on. So tonight, if you are interested and are in the Pelican Rapids area, we are hosting a neighborhood party and have some ice cream treats available. Pinewood Estates has been a project that we've been working on in partnership with the city of Pelican Rapids for probably 3 years. We've been talking about it probably 3 years, 2 years of active work on this. This was a former county highway garage property, about 3 acres of land that was being no longer going to be used by our highway department. And so we have now platted that property and have infrastructure installed. So new city sewer water road in to serve a 9-lot subdivision in this area. And with the support from Minnesota Housing, we have moved forward with the construction of 3 homes that are the renderings you can see here. They are nearing completion, probably in the next 2 months or so. They should be fully complete. We do have a purchase agreement signed for one of them. So there's still 2 actively available. And then the lots also are available. There is an income requirement for the homes because of our funding from Minnesota Housing to help offset the difference between the cost of construction and what these homes appraised for in Pelican Rapids. And so there is that piece for the buyer, and that is that the income we talked about earlier on the owner-occupied rehab program. But the lots are available for anybody. There's no income requirement or any other conditions on the lots. We're using tax increment financing, so the future taxes will offset the development costs for the infrastructure, so there are no special assessments on these lots. So they are ready to build, and for any of the lots, and the homes will be ready for purchase. They are $315,000 listed there with our partners at Andrew Yagi Realty. So that is a little on that project, which is exciting to see it come to fruition. And it's a broad invite just to kind of connect with the neighborhood and hopefully answer any questions if neighbors have been wondering what's going on in their backyard. So excited to have that event tonight. So from 5 to 7, and the location is east of City Hall. So I know our friends from Pelican are on. There's probably a better way to describe the address, but yeah, 3rd Street. I'm going to struggle there. Should have looked at this beforehand, but yeah, immediately east of City Hall. So if you can get through the highway construction that's also underway, you should be able to get over to the homes themselves. So come visit us tonight if you have a chance. Any questions on that project or where we're at? Okay, well, come on over. It's warm out, so ice cream treats will be in full force tonight if you need to cool off. All right, so finally, again, just a reminder about our variety of housing programs. We talked a little bit, more focused on our rehab type programs today, but always keep in mind to visit ottertailcounty.gov/housing to see the variety of housing programs and resources that we have for developers, for homeowners, prospective home buyers through our down payment assistance program, and as well as the pieces that we've talked about today or any of the other programs that we administer here locally. So here's some contact information for Ben, myself, and then Tanya Westra, who's our housing program supervisor and knows a lot more about all these programs than I do. So we are available yet this afternoon if you want to stay on the call or ask any questions now. I'll open that back up for questions. Otherwise, always feel free to reach out to us if you want to connect on an opportunity another time. So questions?
This is Lee. I just would comment on the introductory remarks that Ben Winchester made about the impact of a vacant home and how it has a negative impact on our taxes and how we don't probably realize it, but we all pick up that deficit or that lack of funds. And so when we see homes that we feel should be occupied as we drive through our communities in our county, what might we do to bring about that change that would put that home back into function and put an occupant in it? How would we, just as community people, react to that?
I just would go up to the property owner and talk to them. There's
well, it probably has a for sale sign on the front side and nothing's happening. It's been empty for a long time. I'm probably speaking from an example I have in my mind.
Yeah. Well, I can speak from our side, and we have probably talked about this scenario, Lee, but if there's a willingness, we have some capacity depending on the home and its condition to do an acquisition, rehab, resale. And that's something that, takes capacity and resources. So we haven't delved into that too deeply, but it is something that we are actively looking at what could make sense, when does it make sense, and what are the parameters under which we would undertake pursuing that. Because, while it's important to invest, and you just outlined the impact of that investment and the return on that investment, but we still have limited, finite capacity and resources. So we have to be thoughtful about that.
And that might be why it's still for sale.
And willing private property rights. Yep, that's what someone might think their property is worth doesn't always translate to the market either.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Other comments or questions? All right. Last chance. I'll talk slow. All right. Well, appreciate everyone hopping on today. I'll stay on if there's any questions or comments that people want to kind of just have more of a conversation in a smaller group. I don't know if Ben, if you're able to stick on for a few minutes as well, and we'll just keep the lines open, but we'll let folks get on with the balance of their day and watch for follow-up communication with the slide deck and resources that were discussed today. So thanks everyone. Take care.